Nobody has ever saved their way to being wealthy. You only can invest your way to being wealthy. It's compounding interest.
But if I did not close on a single house today, it wouldn't matter. I'm still going to get a check in my inbox. I don't even have to work. I have money coming in, and that is the greatest part of my life.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here. I am so excited for today's topic because it's something that we all need to be focused on. And that is the difference between growing our income, hear me on this, and growing wealth. And we're going to talk about the difference between those two things and the fact that they're not the same deal today. Okay, this is going to be a really big session, and hopefully a lot of us are going to have like, whoa, kind of level realizations about some maybe patterns and some opportunities in our world so that we can build income, absolutely, but also so that we can build wealth, this concept of permanence and what is wealth and defining that and really getting groovy with that. And I actually have a friend today that I'm going to bring up with me, which I'm really excited, and I'll bring him on stage here in just a second. So with no further ado, though, I want to bring my very dear friend, and Josh, actually, you're going to have to help because I know you have a better memory than I do. How long have you and I known each other? Because we were band dorks like forever ago together. We met in Drum and Bugle Corps, and like were we 17, 18 when we met? Like how old were we?
You were older than me. I just want to throw that out there.
I still am.
Oh my gosh, man, it's been a while. I'll say it's been probably what, 15, 20 years. It's been a while. I know when I first met you, I was 15 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I couldn't even drive a car, man.
Wait a minute. So how old are you now? Because I'm 42.
I'm 41.
All right. So I was 16.
16.
Holy
Yeah,
moly.
All
right. So that tells you we've known each other for a hot minute, guys, right? And then we've both taken interesting and kind of parallel journeys. Like Josh is a really smart guy. So any 15 years, shut up, Joanne. It's math. 1, 2, 4, 5. We're going to be talking about investing. Today, we're going to teach you a new strategy for math, right? Josh is 15 plus another 15 equals 41.
That's right.
But Josh and his wife, the reason I wanted Josh in today, and he's just going to kind of pivot off of a lot of concepts I'm going to present today. Josh and his wife have been doing this right. And I am blown away by what they've been up to. And just so everyone knows, they got started in real estate as investors. And both of them had worked as public school teachers. Josh still does. And also has a real estate license now, has come in. They're sweeping the floor in Atlanta as they're tearing up transactions now as well. But they started in real estate as investors, thinking as investors. And I'm actually curious, Josh, like and I've got some slides and stuff, but what started your journey? Like what started your brain heading this direction? Like what was the tipping point for you?
Look, man, it really started a few years ago. And for those of you that don't know, I actually became a real estate agent, but I was an investor first. And I've been investing in real estate for a while. And so a couple of years ago, I called Jeff and I was like, why am I giving away the commissions on my own deals? And it's so funny, Jeff, you've showed me how to make more money, but I've always been a real estate investor first. Like that's,
right.
I'll be honest, I'm in that game. But yeah, so to make a long story short, my kids, I have a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 1-year-old, dude, like 1-year-old. So, man, it was about really 2 years ago, I started calling around and asking for, from help from some investor friends going, okay, what am I going to do? Because I can't keep working 60-hour work weeks. I got to solve this. And so what's really cool, Jeff, in our position, and I don't know if this is something we're going to talk about today, but if I did not close on a single house today and I didn't go to work as a teacher today, it wouldn't matter. I'm still going to get a check in my inbox. I don't even have to work. I have money coming in. And that is the greatest part of my life.
Yeah, that's kind of, this is what we're going to talk about today, because same for us. And it's not just off revenue share. So everyone understands, like we have passive income there. We also own businesses. We also own assets. So all of this is about generating multiple pockets, multiple buckets of passive income so that you have streams of income coming towards you and that your assets are growing in value. We're going to define these terms today, guys. If you're like, what's an asset? Holy moly. Did Jeff just say a bad word? No. We're going to talk about all of it today and how's it work. Let me do a little bit of screen share. And just, I can't help it, guys. I'm a slides junkie. So I love creating my slides, and it makes me feel cool to have some visuals to show. So this will probably not work or something. Okay, there we go. We're close. So I love the quote here on our like little intro screen for the day. Making money is not the same as building wealth. Warren Buffett, he's done okay for himself. Right? And so making money, not the same as building wealth. Well, what in the heck are the two then? Well, they go hand in hand in some ways, and actually in some other ways, they have literally nothing to do with each other. And that's what's really interesting. And a lot of times, well, how many guys have met? Okay, actually, I got to slow down because I want to ask some cool questions. Put in the chat if you feel like you have a good, it could be good plus, it could be great, could be extraordinary, but good or more income, but you don't feel like you're really mastering wealth yet. So again, just say yes if you have a good income, but you don't feel like you've mastered wealth yet. Okay, so I've got yes, yes, yes. Awesome. So we're getting some people hitting yes. I have 8. Oh, dude, good job, Raymond. 8 units providing income. That's great. So some people may be starting that journey, right? And then this question is like, where do I go next? What do I do next, right? And we're all at different levels. And today is not about judgment, whether it's self-judgment or from anyone else. We're not going to disclose our incomes here, guys. We're going to disclose outcomes. And outcomes means what life do you want to have? And then what can we do about it? Okay, and that's part of the reason why I brought Josh in, because they're doing something about it. Here's what we're going to tear down today, just so everyone can kind of get an overview. I always like saying what we're going to do, then doing it, then saying what we did do, that kind of an approach, right? Can't help it. You can't take the teacher out of me. So we're going to talk about budgeting, living below your means, managing debts, increasing income, saving consistently, investing, diversifying incomes, building an emergency fund, planning for retirement, educating yourself. And we're going to talk about a lot inside each of those categories. Before we do any of that stuff, please screenshot this, read it, take a screenshot and read it. We're not licensed financial advisors. None of the information presented in this webinar should be presented as personalized financial information or investment advice. Talk to a financial advisor. Do not listen to anything I say. I am a moron. My finances are I don't know. Like whatever it is I'm supposed to say here. I'm not a lawyer or a CPA or a financial advisor or a RIA. You need to get all of those things for yourself and take care of your own business. Today's all about some hypotheticals. Okay, that's all we're doing. We're just going to crunch out some hypotheticals. All right. Anyway, have to say all that crap, apparently, the attorneys. So we're going to go through these items today. I don't know why I did it that way. Don't worry about it. All right. So creating a budget. So this is something that was hilarious to me. It was presented to me midway into my journey as an entrepreneur, where someone's like, well, what's on your budget? And I'm like, what do you mean budget? Right? Like that should have been obvious. It just should have been obvious. And yet it wasn't, right? If you're trying to lose weight, you track calories, you track your, I don't know, your macros and your micros and your something. Clearly I'm not doing that. Like I have no biceps, but if I was doing that, I'd learn all about it. I'd learn how many reps, I'd learn all about my food, all this kind of stuff. And I would track something. So creating a budget is what allows us to know where we're going. You need to be tracking your income, and I'm going to give you some examples here in a second, and we can talk through why this stuff matters. Tracking your income and expenses meticulously to ensure that you're saving and more specifically investing according to your financial goals. That, by the way, that's making a big assumption, guys, that you have financial goals. We're going to talk about that as well. So really fast, and you can screenshot these. I'm happy to make these slides available. Create a budget. Here's some business items that tend to be either on or forgotten on a budget, right? So everything all the way down to insurances, licensing and renewals, technology, professional services, internet, phone, tons of stuff. The nice thing is a lot of these can be somehow deducted. If you have a CPA, you should talk to them, tax advisor, strategist. I'm not saying that they are or aren't, but they might be. So, and then life stuff, right? That we got a lot of life stuff. The aggregate between these two, you're all self-employed, right? Is what starts to create your monthly burn rate. And you need to have some awareness about what that is, because you still have to pay taxes, by the way, and then have money left out. Well, I mean, you might. We can show you some interesting stuff about that today. But and then guess what? And then hopefully you're going to review all of your expenses in order. And my recommendation is from largest to smallest as annual costs. I don't care what you spend monthly on Hulu. I care that you know what that costs you every year. I have people tell me, well, it's only $10 a month. I'm like, great, $120. How do you feel about that expense? Oh, and you have to pay taxes to get to that. So $180. And you're not using it. You're comfortable with that? I just want to make sure, right? Is there something you'd prefer to spend that money on? So, but Josh, do you guys, I'm guessing you guys budget fervently.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like you're a nerd.
Some of our mentors have told us too that if you don't have a plan to succeed, then in essence you have a plan to fail. And so our budget is our success plan. And one thing I point out too, and some of you guys I'm sure have heard it before, is we pay ourselves first. Like we have a certain percentage that we put away for what we call Boyd Inc., which is not the name of our business. It's just what we joke around and call it Boyd Inc. But yeah, we plan for that. We're going to be successful because we've planned for that, and our budget is our number one way that we plan.
We went through a wealth mastery with Tony Robbins, and they called it your PYF fund, your pay yourself first fund, which is awesome. The challenge is that I think a lot of people have a PYO fund, which is pay yourself only, right? And that's a real problem because you're paying yourself now. And here's the thing for everyone to understand. Wealth building is about paying you later. It's about paying future you is the way that I look at it, right? If you can think about how to set up future you to have a kick-ass reality, it's going to be great. But if you're not thinking about future you, then future you's life is going to be not awesome or is just going to involve a lot of work, right? And so let's take a look really quickly because I put together an actual sample budget that we can just look at. And I just want to show you guys what some of this can look like, right? So a lot of this stuff can be moved around, adjusted. I do this with Lexi. We've done this with clients, all sorts of stuff. But check this out. Here's some business purchases, right? And then we could just look at it. And here's what I like to do. Let's just say that you've got a VA assistant costing you $800 a week. So that's $3,200 a month. That's $38,400 a year. I want to see the annual number. I want to see the annual number. And the reason I want to see it on my budget is because I want every line item expense to hurt when I look at it. Does everyone understand that? I want your line item expenses to be painful when you look at them, because then you will evaluate if you really freaking need them. Okay. Lead purchase. Oh, it's only $3,000 a month. You shut up. $36,000 a year, right? You might actually add 50% over and above on that one, which would be another, 15.5 or 18 on top, right? So, and I would add another 18 on top of this. So that's 54,000 pre-tax income in order to get down to this expense load. Holy moly, that's an expensive thing. So, I'd love for that to go to zero. I'd love for that to go to zero, right? So how could I do these things? I don't know. But this is the exercise, because if you start at the top of this list, what you'll notice is we've got them sorted by biggest to smallest. How much of a difference would it make if this 38.4 disappeared off that annualized expense load? Holy crap, that makes a huge difference and frees up a lot of capital. Would I rather spend 38.4 next year as a down payment on 1 or 2 rental properties? Maybe, right? Josh is like, yes. Right? Could I free up that capital to get it plugged into my business? And by business, I mean my life, right? I view my life as a business. Then I go down to household expenses, right? We can look at these as well. Mortgage, insurance, groceries, child support, travel, super job, holy moly, look at all this crap. All right, yeah. And then we spend a lot of money on what? Taxes. Well, we got to understand what that looks like. Maybe your income's at $500,000 for the year. What you'll notice about this is I actually have this little worksheet set up to work. How'd you do that, Jeff? I went on ChatGPT and I said, build me a single line of code that references this cell and make it equal all of these things for the federal income tax brackets for 2024. And it was like, oh yeah, no problem. And in about 1.1 nanoseconds, it pooped it out for me. And I did the same thing for Oregon, because we got a lot of Oregon people on here. And so then what would be this is, by the way, pre-deductions. You guys are like, I never pay that. Yeah, I know. I want you to plan for the worst and have the best, not plan for the best and have the worst, right? That's awful. So if you know what your maximum expense load is on taxes, can you start to plan for it? Yes. What is that? Almost 40%, round up. Then if you have money left over, good for freaking you. Good for you. Pay your quarterlies, have a nice life. How many people reach tax day and it's just like, it's meltdown day, right? I can't believe it. I'm just, like you're just blood coming out all your orifices. It's just awful, right? It's so much stress. It doesn't have to be. It's just planning ahead. If you know what the max load is, then you're not so worried about it. But if you think you make $500,000 and you can spend $500,000, you're wrong. 300,000, right? It all changes based on brackets. You're going to pay about a third if you're making 300 grand. If you're making 100,000, you're going to pay about a quarter. Okay, this is how it works. If you're making $1 million, got some people on here, right? You're going to pay about 43%, 44%, somewhere in that range, right? This is assuming no deductions, no tax strategies, no arbitrage, no investments with bonus depreciation, no whatever, right? There's other ways to do this stuff. Summary, we can look at a summary statement to get down to business and household. And then I like to do a 1.5x monthly. That builds in about a 33% buffer for taxes. And then I can look at like a debt load. Maybe you have a boat and it's financed and a couple cars and a house and a couple personal loans and a bunch of credit cards and you took an EIDL loan, right? So I have a little loan calculator I created over here. How'd you do that, Jeff? Oh, it's just an amortization thing, but you can just ask ChatGPT to create that. That's what I did on a 30-year AM schedule. Easy. It's baked in. All of this is very easy. What I would recommend is then you start looking at what are my biggest interest percentages. Again, all of this on my budget. How am I supposed to ever? This took me before this call. By the way, I started this morning and I just created it for today's session. So it took me maybe an hour to put all this together. And I mean, all the slides and the document you just looked at, including all those cells, under an hour. I have people who are like, I don't have time to do that. Under an hour, and I prepared the entire presentation and a budget. So I want you guys to know this doesn't have to take a lot of time. I see Raymond giving me the double thumbs up. Having a budget is super powerful because then you know what you're actually dealing with. And I want you guys to be violently honest with yourself. Josh, talk to me about that because I saw that you nodded there. I think some people just ostrich on finances. And by that, I mean, they put their head in the sand and hope it'll all just get better on its own.
Well, I'm thinking, so one of my, Eric Vogel, who's a mentor of mine, we co-host a podcast together. One of the things that when he first started mentoring on my business, he really honed in on KPIs. And I've heard us all talk in the community about KPIs all the time. But you have to think about all of you in your life. Vicki Robbins wrote a book about your life, and your life has KPIs. And I was shaking my head because when I first did this budget a few years ago too, I discovered in my business, but even in my life, that my money wasn't going with what I wanted my KPIs for my life to be. For example, Jeff, you'll laugh at this. Since I got my agent license, I looked and I realized that most of my money, this is so embarrassing. You guys don't make too much fun of me. Most of my money was spent on shirts with logos, but not spent with leveraging leads. And so just in the last 3 months, I go, no, for where I'm at, I need to be all in on leads. But you also have to think too, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. If you'll do the exercise and create a budget, we talk about leaving a legacy. And I think that's really where you're going with probably all of this at the end of the day, is build wealth to leave something behind. And I would even argue that when you look at that, you can create avenues that create streams to leave a legacy. And that stuff gets me super fired up and excited.
Totally. And by the way, I hope you guys are already hearing Josh has some serious gold to drop today. This is going to be really fun. And Josh, would you mind, by the way, can you put either a link or the name of your podcast or something like that in the chat? And we'll link to it also under the video on YouTube.
Absolutely. Sure. Thanks, man.
What's the name of it?
It's On Purpose Investor. I just started co-hosting with Eric. Eric and his wife, Tiffany, though, they're rock star investors.
Yeah. So are you, man. All right. So that's really exciting. And I would encourage anybody to get really plugged in to that type of content. If you're not thinking as an investor, by the way, that's just an identity shift. How do you become an investor? Here it is. You ready? Here's how you become. Repeat after me. I am an investor. There you go. That's how you get started right there. That if you just said it, it is now your reality. Now, everything that comes next is dictated by how you identify, right? Like Raymond, at some point, I know Raymond is an investor. He decided at some point, I'm going to invest, right? Did you make mistakes, Raymond? Just give me a nod. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, of course you did. You totally, right? It's like running through a dark room with the lights completely off. You're just going to slam into some walls. Thanks, Josh. Onpurposeinvestor.com. So, okay, great. So here's what's interesting, guys. That's thing number one is just kind of, you got to get optics, right? I love Keith Cunningham. He's a really amazing guy, all about accounting. I think he teaches at Harvard. And Lexi and I have heard him speak a number of times. One of our favorite guys to really clue in on for business strategy and knowing your numbers. And Keith always says that knowing the numbers in your business is like you're a pilot. It's just being able to see the dials. And if you don't know the numbers in your business, it's like being a pilot, but you can't see the controls. And so when it gets cloudy outside, you're going to smack into the side of something and your business is going to go up in flames and, oh, the humanity and everything's burning. It's awful, right? So guess what? It's just going to go down for the count. You can't help it. Why? Because you have no clue what's going on. Well, I think I'm doing pretty well. Yeah. There's a reason why tax day hurts every year, and it's not because you were completely prepared and you had complete transparency and optics on your business. You didn't know what was coming. That's why you got smacked in the face. And guess what? That's your fault, but we can fix it. It's okay. It's okay, right? Back in college, I started working out for like 3 minutes at one point, and I worked out as hard as I could for like 4 days in a row one time, same muscle groups. And then I learned, because I was like a quadriplegic for like a week after that you can't do that. But I made that mistake because then my muscles are all like, I couldn't do anything because I was so exhausted. I didn't realize you had to have rest in between. Nobody told me that, right? I was just like, I'm going to go work out because I'm young and I should be cut or something. I don't know, right? I don't know what I'm doing in that department. If I had gone to somebody who was intelligent and knew what they were doing, they could have guided me. So I'm glad you guys are here today. And hopefully here's my hope for today, that we stimulate you enough to go out and seek additional information and become an expert in this area of your life. Okay, thing number 2 on that we're covering today, live below your means. This one is something that I have coached so many people in real estate, and I don't think I've found too many who are achieving this very well on day one. There are some, by the way, there are some, and this is one of these crazy things where we, as agents, and I think because a lot of us are high eyes, if you study DISC at all, high eyes like to look good, right? We care about what people think about how we look. And has anyone ever heard the phrase keeping up with the Joneses, right? We know what this is. And what happens is you see that your neighbor just got a Mercedes-Benz or an Escalade or something, right? And then they got a new boat. Oh, they've got a vacation home, right? They're not even having to use it as a rental. They just go there and then lose money on it when they're not there. And then guess what? They got another new car. Oh man. And then they're taking 10 vacations a year. They must be killing it. You have no idea, by the way. They could be drowning in debt. And no retirement, no investments, no wealth planning at all, nothing set aside. They could be dying, but the optics on Instagram are really nice, right? Like it looks good. It looks sexy. How many people have read the book, The Millionaire Next Door? I see Josh's hand up, my hand up, right? The Millionaire Next Door is a bit of a parable. It's a story about this concept of a person who lives next door in this kind of plain Jane house. It doesn't seem like they've got much going on. Their cars are kind of older, et cetera, et cetera. But then you find out they're freaking loaded. How did they get freaking loaded? It wasn't because they made a ton of money or sold a business or founded Microsoft. It was because they made strategic decisions and lived way below their means along the way to be able to create a life of abundance later on. Okay. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this for a minute. And Josh, I know that you guys have managed to do this, which I would say is impressive because I know that you were operating on school teacher salaries to get started, right? Like this is not like Josh was like, oh, I was a C-level executive at Amazon. And then, and I'm not busting your chops. I'm saying what you've done is freaking awesome. So help us think about what kind of sacrifice and what kind of dedication does that require in order to pull that off?
Well, and I'll say this, and we'll keep it here in the family, stuff that we don't talk about, but I believe that when we reach December, because I know you referenced at me as a school teacher, I love teaching. We've already bought my wife's financial freedom, and I should be able to have mine by next year, but we'll own $1 million in net assets by the end of this year. We're one property short. So I'm 100,000 in equity, and then I'm right there. So I'll throw that out there. And like you said too, there's a lot of teachers, 2 or 3 that I work with, that you wouldn't know it, that they just love what they do, but they've done the same process that they've built up through real estate. Jeff, remind me the question. I just sidetracked it.
Yeah. No, the question really is, about creating, well, and actually it may be a better question for you when we come around to your investing strategy, because I don't think it's required a lot of headroom. But have you guys created headroom in your budget? Are you setting things aside? Are you creating, you know what I mean? Have you had to have financial discipline to keep
Oh, absolutely. You know,
spending
we've
low?
one of the things too, and it depends on a person's background. I was raised in a blue collar household too. So I grew up, we talk about mindsets with money. I grew up with the understanding that if someone else had a big piece of the pie, that meant less pie for me. But over time, I've realized that money is abundant. It's just paper that's being printed, and anyone can grab it. Any one of you out there can grab that money, because with you, Jeff, if you get a big piece of your pie, it doesn't mean less pie for me. Jeff, I'm out building bakeries, my friend. I'm not concerned about your piece of pie. I say go get the biggest piece of pie that you want. And how we got there is surround yourself with great people. One of my mentors over here, Danny Williams, he says that the wealth building process begins in your mind. So the first sacrifices for the people that are out there that want to get started, it's not even money, it's fixing your mind. It'll blow your mind later, but we can talk about how I buy properties today. And when I walk out of that deal, Jeff, I have $0 in it. I buy properties and I have none of my money in them.
Love it. Infinite returns.
Infinite returns.
That's the best. I don't even know how to put that math into Google Sheets. You know, it'll crash Google servers. They're like, wait a minute, how do you have $0 in and now you're making money? So this is awesome. And one of the things that I had to do along the way, and I will tell you guys, I had a nasty spending habit for a while. When I came over into business, I was like, I went from making 45,000 a year as a college professor to making like 350 grand my first year, and then like 650, and then 1.4 million. Those like my first 3 years in real estate. And I'm just like, great, I'm done. Like I'm retired forever. I can spend like an absolute moron, right? And just blow all my, and I was dumb. So part of it is I'm like, yeah, don't do what I did. I want you guys, vulnerably, I want to tell you guys, like, don't do that. And I can show you a better path. And I know this because this better path, which I'm now living, reduces your stress and gives you the freedom that you actually crave. Most people come into real estate, they want one thing, freedom, right? That's really the main reason most people come into real estate. As an investor, as a kind of retail person, right? What are we doing? We're really trying to achieve freedom, time freedom, financial freedom. What do we not get? Time freedom, financial freedom, right? That's not good. That means we're missing on both fronts. How do we fix that? The answer is wealth building. It's a re-gearing of what our actual goal is. Our goal is creating an escape valve over time. And it's going to require a mindset shift today. So let me pull back up my slides really quickly. Live below your means. What the heck does that mean, Jeff? Well, I'm going to give you some really, really basic stuff today, but I'm also going to give you some mindset stuff. For me, consumers are sheep, right? I love there's a Macklemore song where he says, $50 for it's thrift store, for the thrift shop or whatever that store is, the Macklemore tune. And he says, $50 for a t-shirt that's getting tricked by business. And what I will tell you guys is I love discount shopping and I prefer not spending money at all on anything ever. You would be alarmed at how little money Lexi and I spend. Alarmed. Very, very, very low spending. Our monthly budget requires next to nothing for us to just pay all of our everything, right? Because we've designed our life that way, not because, oh, we're so lucky. It wasn't luck. It was freaking work, guys, to get to this. But I'm saying it's not beyond anyone on this call to pull this off. I have friends who have done this, who are making 30 grand a year, and they have financial independence at that level of lifestyle for the rest of their life. Now they get to ratchet it up over time. That's incredible, right? Now we can talk about that. So what do you have to do? First off, have the discipline to spend very little for a while. So you remember that budgeting exercise? The reason you do a budget is so that you can eliminate stuff on the budget. I promise. That's why. Create the budget so you have optics on what your spending habits are, and then dig in and get rid of stuff. You're on a slash. You want to slash as much as you can, right? I'm talking deep cuts, baby. The stuff that hurts. We've got 2 cars. We don't need 2 cars. Ugh, really? Yeah, really. Right? That's... Ugh. We've got a really expensive mortgage on our primary residence and it's super nice so we can impress all of our friends. Awesome. Maybe, again, not financial advice, but maybe reconsider. Could somebody move into that house and be renting it? You could move elsewhere at a very low cost. and now your financial position is alarmingly better every month, right? What could you do? Be resourceful, but don't get trapped. There's always an answer. Replace consumer habits with anti-consumer habits, right? I notice a lot of people look at the bottom of the screen. They have words in their vocabulary like I deserve, or it's not fair, or I'm going to treat myself, or this is a reward, right? I've done it. We've all done it. Don't do it. You don't deserve shit. Let me tell you. No one's coming to save you, baby. So you're going to have to save yourself. You're going to have to build the life raft, get on it, and paddle. All day long, twice on Sunday. That's all that happens. That's the entire world. It's in a nutshell. Sorry, guys, if this is where you're learning this. But the last piece of that is, because it's all you, do not care what other people think at all, ever, period. End of the story. Oh, but they're going to judge me. Screw them. Who cares? Don't care. I used to own a boat. I don't own a boat now. What will my friends think? I don't care. I know what I'm doing with my money. It doesn't matter. My truck has some rust on it and a couple scratches on the back. I think Lexi ran it up against something yesterday. She just told me. Guess what? Am I going to get it fixed? No. I'm going to drive that truck until the wheels and the axles fall off of it. It's completely paid off, by the way. We have no debt. So does it matter to me? Nope. Don't care. Still drives. It's the whole point of a truck, right? And it's a truck. It's not a Lamborghini. All right. So check this out. Your income, there's 100% of your income. You're going to pay taxes. Remember, we said to budget that. Can you get that tax load down? Yes. We're going to talk about that today. Yes, of course you can. However, I'm not a tax advisor, as a reminder from slide number disclaimer. Also, though, I want you to start to think about this category of expenses. This will be your largest annual expense that you should be in consideration of before you think about anything else. And it's not that you're not paying yourself first. It's that if you don't have an awareness of this, you're going to pay yourself 100% and then move on about your business. And that's going to be a real catastrophe. And I've seen it again and again. Next, save and invest. I recommend at least 20%, maybe more. Jeff, I'm not making enough for that. Yeah, we're going to talk about that today. This will give you a reason to go increase your income and to start acting like the hustler that you probably thought of yourself as when you became an entrepreneur. A lot of people, when they come into entrepreneurship, they're like, I'll do anything that makes money, right? And then they pick a career path, quote unquote, and then they're like, well, I'm too good for that. What happened? Dude, I will mow a lawn if you pay me enough. I don't know. Got to look at what that's going to be worth in terms of effort in, dollars out, right? Maybe it's a big lawn. Maybe it's the presidential lawn. I don't know. And then budget. I tried to make this as simple as possible. 2 of those pay you. 1 of them pays Uncle Sam. And by the way, that's your freedom tax. This up here, I have a unique perspective on this. This is what you get to pay. You get to pay to live in the greatest country on earth. And I still believe in that. So that's how I feel. Woo! It's in my heart. And I will tell you this. Can you reduce it? Yes. But the tax code, just so everyone knows, is an incentive program. They incentivize certain types of behaviors, like investing in real estate, as it turns out, buy what you're selling, investing in real estate so that you can provide housing. It's not alternatives. Well, this person didn't pay any tax. Yes, but they created social value. And that's why. When you create social value, you're operating within the tax structures, and the tax structure says either give us all your money, the government, and we'll decide what to do with it, or give it to this nonprofit and they can decide what to do with it. That's social good. Give it to us and we'll decide what to do with it, or create housing and we'll give you bonus depreciation, for example. Right? Those are incentive programs. It's not get out of jail free, guys. It's just move your money where it helps the most people. And the government understands that. And so they incentivize that wealth movement, right? This is not about getting out of jail free. All right. I just want to change your headspace on that. Because I used to think, oh, these dirty birds, they're just getting away with not paying taxes. No, they're not. They're creating massive value, massive value. And as a result of that value, the government says, hey, thanks. That was the incentive. You're off the hook over here. But it cost them money on the things that they did do. All right. So that's a really, really huge part of this. And I just conceptually, I'm not going to go super deep on this today because I know we have limited time, but when you start to create an idea of I earn more than I spend, hopefully dramatically more. My goal is if you guys are making $1 million a year, you're spending on an annual budget of 250,000. And then if your income goes to 1.5 million, your budget goes to 250,000. Right? Maybe 120,000. I'd prefer that, but trying to give you guys a little bit of slushy, right? Well, but I made $5.8 million. Holy moly, best year ever. I own 6 businesses now and they're all doing well. Yeah, that's great. 120,000. What? But you shouldn't. Just keep the brake on as long as you possibly can. It's like pulling a slingshot back, right? If you release it too early, now you got to start pulling it back again. That's compounding interest. The second you get out of the game is the second you're done. Compounding interest only works when you're activating against it. Okay, Josh, sorry. I dominated there for a second. I apologize. But I am so passionate about this because I've seen so many people jack it up. Okay, so I'm trying to get to the next category here, which is manage debt wisely. Now, this one's an interesting one, and I'm just going to go very quickly and cursorily through this category to say this. If you got a lot of debt, that is your first investment. I know that this kind of flies in the face of some conventional knowledge, but just trust me on this one. If you have a lot of debt, that's your first investment. If you have extra cash, we're going to talk about things you could possibly do sooner to create additional income, but then your first investment of income will be into debt reduction. Why? Because it's negative amortization. It's negative compounding against you. If you have a mortgage, has anyone ever looked what the total payoff on that is, right? Here's what I want you to do. Take your minimum monthly payment on your credit card and multiply times the number of months that you would have to pay that in order for it to actually produce a zero balance and add up all of those months. And your $10,000 credit card balance that's going to take you $90,000 to pay off, you might want to reconsider. I just want everyone to be aware of that. Your mortgage, maybe 3x, right? Your $600,000 house will cost you 1.8 million, but it's a personal mortgage. It's better, right? Investment properties, who cares? So long as you're cash flowing on them, I'm good, right? Cash flow, that's my mantra. There it is. Cash flow is my mantra. I'm wearing it today. So it's a big deal. All right. This is a really big thing. So if you have debt, and you don't have to like call yourself out today, but if you have negative debt, what is negative debt? Does anyone know this? What's the difference between good debt and bad debt? Somebody give me an answer in the chat or unmute yourself. Good debt versus bad debt. Anybody?
So isn't good debt leveraged debt that is actually bringing in income?
Absolutely.
It's paying for itself.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's Joanne Graham, everybody. Awesome. And so good debt makes money. That's the answer. Good debt makes money. So for instance, I take out a note. We're going to talk about some structures on this today. It's part of why I brought Josh in. I take out a note. I purchase a rental property. We're going to talk about how to do that. I have debt on that rental property, but I cash flow every month on it. Somebody else is paying the mortgage. I get income, depreciation, equity, appreciation, and leverage all against that property. And I'm not out anything every single month. And even if I had a few months of vacancy at some point in there, generally speaking, my net is up on this. And especially once I start looking at depreciation, equity, appreciation, all that kind of stuff, right? So my net goes up. My net worth definitely goes up. Is that good debt? Yes, it's in service of me. What's bad debt? A car loan. Could I turn that car loan into good debt? Sure. Put the car on Turo and rent it out every month for more than it costs you to have it. Now the car becomes an asset, not a liability. Assets make you money. Liabilities cost you money. Generally speaking, I like my assets to also gain value. That's the problem with the Turo method, is your car loses money over time. Okay? So just so everyone understands, good debt makes money. Bad debt costs money. Is debt bad? No. Can debt be bad? Yes. Right? Robert Kiyosaki, though, is notable for talking about how much debt he likes to have. He's got what, like 600 million or over $1 billion in debt now, something like that, right? But here's the thing to understand. If I own, let's just say I own a 10-plex, a multifamily, right? And I take out the value of that property has gone up, and I go in and I take debt against the equity that has been gained on that property. Am I taxed on the money that I receive as a loan? Josh is already like, he knows the answer. No. Wait, does that mean it's tax-free income? Kinda. Is it horrible? Not really. Why? Because how much would it cost for me to borrow against a credit card or even a line of credit if I was going to borrow, let's say, $150,000, $200,000? Yeah, Raymond's like, an enormous amount. How much does it cost on, like, let's just say a second on a property? 8%, 10%, somewhere in there, maybe. Somewhere in that range right now. Is that better than 28% APR? Uh-huh. Awful. Josh, what are your thoughts on debt as it pertains to this topic?
So there's a lot of stuff that you're talking about. For me, and people will see, may think this differently. For me, a lot of people are trying to get cash. They're trying to get as much cash. Cash is taxed really, really high. Every time I make cash, I go spend cash. I'm taxed on the income of the cash. If I put it on a credit card, there's 22%. And when we're talking about tax rates, everybody needs to know their marginal tax rates, but make sure that you factor in state, local, and federal taxes. The average person, for every dollar they spend, it's almost costing them $1.75. So let me ask you this question, Jeff. What is better to have? Is it better to have cash or to have access to massive amounts of cash?
I would always argue that access is the new ownership.
Yes, I have access to massive amounts of cash, and I would rather have access because, Jeff, if I'm borrowing your money, let's say one day I'm going to come to Jeff and borrow millions of dollars of Jeff's money. Jeff is the one he's paying income tax. Jeff is paying all the taxes on that money, and I don't have to tap that resource until I have the asset that I come to Jeff. And at that point, I'm just taking down what I need when I need it, and I'm not paying taxes until that point. So for me, I'm not as concerned about having cash under my bed pillow. I want Jeff to have massive amounts of cash in his bed pillow, and I just want access to it.
Amen to that. Yeah, in fact, well, and this is the whole concept of like partnership and real estate investing, et cetera, that I think a lot of people miss because we're playing too small, right? One of my very favorite sayings for real estate agents is buy what you're selling. Right? I've heard John Sellers say it a number of times on these calls where he says, if you've said at any point in your career, this deal is too good to pass up, once in a lifetime investment opportunity, oh, best investment ever, and then you don't buy it, why not? You couldn't figure it out? You couldn't make a phone call and figure out what's the structure to buy that? By the way, is there a way to be able to buy a property with at least net, no cash into the deal? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And by the way, I got to get to that quickly because Josh, are you still going to be, are you going to be able to hang for the whole time or no?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. So let's keep going on this, guys. So manage debt wisely. That's just a category, but what I would recommend is if you have a bunch of debt, sort it by the worst debt first. And by that, I don't mean biggest balance. What I do mean is biggest percentage, the biggest negative compounding, eliminate that one first and then go to the next one. So sort by your APR and then just go top down, get rid of them as fast as you can. And I'm talking fire sale. If you need to, literally, guys, okay, hold on. I just want you guys to know this. If you need to, have an estate sale and sell everything you damn well own. I mean this. Do it. Just make big, nasty, gnarly moves. The level of freedom that you will start to feel when you get yourself out from drowning and you start feeling like you're making gains in the world, that's how you actually gain strength. So don't just keep burying yourself under more. Oh, my friend got a new car and then they took a vacation and I feel like I have to do this and I need to have a fancy handbag that cost me $8,000 million. No, you don't. You don't. Guys do it too, by the way. I said handbag, so that's why I'm clarifying. Maybe it was a guy handbag. But I want you guys to know it does not have to be that way. And if you're making financial decisions based on what everybody else does, at least make those decisions based on what Josh does. All right? Don't make it everybody else who's drowning in debt like an idiot. Make it everybody else who's exceeding their value or exceeding their expectations based on values that have to do with investing and wealth management. Okay. That's how you strategically build a future that's worth having. Okay. Let's keep going. So manage debt wisely, blah, 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 Jeff. All right, increase your income. I'm going to go really fast through this one, but just close more units. You're like, oh yeah, sure, easier said than, okay, fine, yeah, but charge more percentage. You can control that. Increase your price point. You can control that. Where do you farm? Where do you door knock? Where do you open house? Where do you direct target market? You can do a side hustle. I'm fine with that. No problems there. You can buy and sell and express a margin. What does that mean, Jeff? You could buy a property and sell it right away, and there's a margin there. Well, it's short-term capital gains. Listen, that's letting the tail wag the dog. Do not avoid income because it has taxes associated with it. Make as much as damn well possible and pay your dues. That's it, okay? I don't know one single successful business leader out there who makes income decisions based on, I'll have to pay more taxes. Of course you will. Make $10 million if you can. Make as much money as possible every year, period. So buy, sell, make a margin. I put this one in there just for Josh because this is part of his deal, which is you leveraging the Burr method. Sparta. Yeah. So this is awesome. Buy a cash flowing asset. This could be a business. This could be all sorts of things, right? I know people right now who are buying into sports teams. This could be that I don't care. I can give you other examples. I'm not trying to give you financial advice, but cash flowing assets can be great. Why do I see cash flow? Because in this case, this isn't necessarily about investing. This is just about upping your cash flow, right? It could be the Turo example. That's not really even a very great asset, but I know people who are making money on the side. They're making an extra $1,000, $2,000 a month because they own 5 cars that they don't drive. And every once in a while, they just drive them to the airport and drop them off to people. Okay. Is that a great idea? I don't know. I've never done it, but could be. At least you're making money. And then save consistently. We talked about this. I'm going to keep moving because we're going to get through some of these. Invest wisely. This one, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Albert Einstein. He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. Please screenshot that and have it tattooed on your forehead. That way, every time you look in the mirror, it'll be there backward and you'll have to try and figure out what the heck it says. All right. So this is a really, really big deal. If you are not currently earning passive income, it's because you're paying someone else's. I'm going to repeat that with the screen on. If you're not currently earning passive income, it's because you are paying someone else's. If that's not hitting you emotionally right now, I don't know what will today. You can just log off. That should hurt enough to get you into action, which is awesome. Josh, what do you think on this category, right? Like this idea of compounding interest, dictating the reason why we should be investing.
Huge, Jeff. You know, something that I think about too is for me personally, let's say I go out, I'm a fantastic real estate agent, really serve my community and my clients, and I make $1 billion and I pass away and I leave that $1 billion. But those dollars aren't making more dollars. There's just $1 billion. There will come a certain point where maybe my kids or their kids, that money will be spent. And so for me, what is greater value? $1 billion of cash that will at some point be spent, or $1 million in net passive investments that it's constantly replenishing itself. If I leave cash flowing assets, it is a multi-generational thing. I'm leaving a legacy that will far outlast and far outlive me. And for me, that is the purpose of money, is that every dollar goes to work. I'm going to stop going to work, but my dollars can keep working for me. I love it. It's like the greatest revenue share program ever.
That's awesome. And you know, one thing I think about is what the time value of money. But most people don't understand inflation. In fact, there's a really great video. I posted it to some of our leaders recently. I'll post it alongside this. But Ray Dalio, if anyone doesn't know, he's a global hedge fund guy. Awesome, right? And his personal net worth is like 20 billion. And Ray's just a dork. He loves finance. He loves capital. He loves understanding the markets. But he probably has what, 360 billion AUM, which means assets under management. So he manages a fund, and they've closed the fund. They don't even accept new investors now. But Ray is one of the most successful people of all time in this space. And he did this entire video that explains the economy, but he explains inflation in this. Not Ray Coburn, right? Ray Dalio. And he wrote the book Principles, by the way, which I would recommend it really strongly to anybody who's wanting to master this space. But what's interesting is he mentions in there that the time value of money goes down. What does that mean? It means if I have $1 million today and I save it, actually, I'm going to tell you this. Money is about half as valuable today as it was in 2017. So if you had $1 million in 2017 and you're like, oh, I'm going to save it to make sure I never lose it because I'm smart, right? And you put it in a bank account, today it's worth what 500,000 was in 2017. Purchasing power. Whoops. It's still $1 million on the value, right? But you're like, wait, how does that make any sense? Let me ask you this. What did houses cost in 1920? Like $1.50, $1.75, right? Now they're like $1 million, right? It's the same house. Why has the price changed? Because we have to ratchet inflation over time. It's part of what drives the economics of our country. It's just how currencies work, okay? And so when you have an understanding of this, you at least need to be outpacing inflation, which means you can't just save money. Nobody has ever saved their way to being wealthy. You only can invest your way to being wealthy. It's compounding interest, right? Has anyone ever seen the 2x example on what do you call it? Doubling your money, 1 penny, 18 holes of golf, this whole thing. I don't remember exactly the example, but it's basically like if you were going to play 18 holes of golf. I don't play golf. Anyone on here a golfer? Josh, are you a golfer?
A very bad one. I count my game by how many balls I lose, not the strokes yet. So for those real golfers
awesome
out there, you don't want to play with me because it takes all day, but I'm going to get better at it.
All right. Well, I played one time. My only time ever playing real golf was with John Sellers. And I think he cut me off at like hole number 3 and he was like, you're just going to drive the cart and drink beer. And I was like, okay. So, but just imagine really quickly that on hole number 1, if I lost, and I would lose all 18 holes, and Josh bet me, he's like, listen, he felt like he's going to whoop me up. And it was like, okay, he's like, listen, how about our opening wager on hole number 1 is 10 cents. And then every hole we'll just keep doubling it all the way to the end. That's compounding interest, right? Because I'm doubling the doubled, and then I'm doubling the doubled, and then I'm doubling the doubled, right? That's compounding. It in this case, it's 200%. It could be any percent, right? 5%. So what would that look like? Well, here's my 10 cents times 2. So on hole number 2, we'd still only be betting 20%. Josh would have taken me for 10 plus 20, 30 cents. Dang it, right? Hole number 3, 40 cents. Hole number 4, the 5th hole, 6th hole, 7th, 8th. Now we're at only the 8th hole, $12.80. I mean, it's not that bad yet, right? But we've got 18 holes. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Well, I got intense. 13th, 14th hole, whoops, 15th hole, 16th hole, holy moly, 17th hole. The 18th hole, our single bet would be $107.20, right? Why does this matter? Compounding interest. Those who have it versus those who pay it. Okay, so I just want you to understand this. You're investing or you're not. Josh is stealing the show with his baby. I love it. All right, well, listen. So let's go to the next category here, though, because I have to get us to where Josh is really going to talk about. So diversify your investments. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. I'm going to fast track us though, Josh, because I want to get to what you're really a true expert in, which is this BRRRR strategy and what you've been doing to gain wealth and your net worth, because I think it really matters. And we're going to start leaning the community harder and harder in this direction. We're going to go 2 directions. One is single family homes. The other is multis, right? I'm gonna guide us in the multis category and a few other people that have really big success. And we have some amazing people inside the community who have single family home success. What I notice is too many agents don't own any property. And that's a mess, right? And so we got to fix that. Diversifying could be as simple as a bunch of singles and some multis. It could be as simple as a bunch of singles in different parts of town or in different towns or in different states, right? To leverage different tax strategies and different up downs of markets, right? It could be that you own some housing and then maybe you own some crypto, right? I'm not super into crypto, but some people are like, oh, it's made so much money. I'm like, yes. Where did that money come from? It came from people who lost so much money. So just to understand that is for me, that's not a pure asset because it's not gaining asset class value independent of what people are willing to pay, which is a problem. The real estate value is tied to an asset that will gain value independent of some other market kind of indicators like emotions, right? Emotions is most of what's gaining value and losing value in crypto. And that's why I get a little scared on that category. And I also know a lot of people who've lost money in it. All right. Build an emergency fund. Again, going fast. 6 months of liquid savings. What's liquid, Jeff? It doesn't mean you don't keep it in water or oil. It means liquid. That means you could turn it into cash quickly. This could be a money market account that keeps a little bit ahead of inflation. Why 6 months? Because if something bad happens, I want to make sure that you've got enough to be able to pay your bills and basics and get yourself back on your feet. Okay, that's why. Or to give your family a minute to think about what they need to do next. Don't touch it unless you go to zero. And at some point when you make enough money, maybe buy yourself a life policy, something that you could even borrow against. That could be cool. Talk to your wealth strategist, your tax advisor, your money advisor, your person, right, to help you with that. Okay, Josh, I want to get out of the weeds here and say, and maybe get into your neck of the woods. What is it that you and Rachel have done? Because here's the thing that I think a lot of people get lost in. They're like, okay, so I need to make a ton more money so that I've got like $1 trillion in savings. And then once I've saved up $1 trillion, then I could invest that $1 trillion and then I'll make some money. And that is absolutely antithetical to what you've done, opposite, not correct to what Josh has done, right? So what Josh did is he was making a reasonable living wage as a public school teacher. How did you go from that to $1 million net worth?
Yeah, so someone once told me your net worth is your net worth. And so we started attending, once I figured out we were going to invest in real estate, we didn't know what we were doing. So we started attending a local meetup in the area. We actually host one of the largest meetups in our area now. But what we did was we just started watching and going and showing up, meeting, talking, networking, getting to know people. And so to make a long story short, the way we make money now is we solve people's problems. As a real estate agent, I love this job because every day I'm helping people solve problems. And now sometimes I find people that have a home that's unfortunately in a condition that they can't sell. And, maybe it's an elderly person that has passed away and their family's stuck with his home that was tied up in probate for whatever reason for 1.5 years. And it's got a lot of problems, man, and it's just not going to sell. And they need someone to help them get out of this house. And so I get to come along, and guess what? I have a financial friend, Jeff, that his business that he is excited more than anything else in the world is to lend people like me money to buy a piece of property. And guess what? He is a person, and I love this, and I pay him for that. So Jeff, do you want me to just nail out the strategy real fast? Is that okay?
Yeah, do it. I think this is so valuable for people because I think, again, this is like the number one hang up with people is they're like, well, when I have money, then I'll invest it. Right. And that when becomes next year. And the interesting thing about next year is it's always next year. Never seems to show up.
That's it. The best time to invest in real estate was yesterday, and the next best time is today. In fact, Jeff, I think that's a quote I use from you that you've taught me. And but anyways, we partnered with a friend, and his business is lending money. I remember when I took him out for coffee, it was the most nervous phone call I ever made. And then, hey man, you've got money and I need it. So what can we do? But to make a long story short, we borrow from him. If we find a piece of property and it's distressed and they're willing to sell it at 75% of the after repair value, we call that ARV, my private money lender will then lend me 100% of that purchase price. And let me just reiterate, my private money lender will lend me 100% of that purchase price. Then my team goes in, and like I said, I'm a real estate agent, and I don't have to know about contractors, but I don't have to know about the work. I don't do the work. I'm too busy working in or on my business to work in my business. So my team goes in and does the work. We have a target, Jeff, that the work can only be 5% of the ARV. And so when the house is done, it's been completely renovated, it's ready to go. I then go do a rate and term refinance with the bank, which guess Wells Fargo, Truist, the big banks will do a rate and term refinance for anyone at any time. They'll do it the day after you close on the house, as long as it's 80% of the ARV. And by the way, that's 80% of the improved ARV because I did the renovation. And at that point, the bank does it. I don't have to bring any cash to closing. 60 days later, I own a house with a traditional mortgage on it. In today's market, the one I did last month was 7% interest. And now I put tenants in it. I'm using the pad split strategy for my tenants, which each one of my little houses. Here's something cool, Jeff. I bought a 1940, now my market is Atlanta, Georgia. I bought a little mill house built in 1945 that was a 2-1. I improved it to a 4-1. I'm in it at 187,000. And after I pay the mortgage expenses, I save for CapEx and I save for vacancy. That little bitty house cash flows $1,000 a month.
Love
So
it.
I
Woo!
only
Come
need,
on.
that's it. 15 houses, that's $15,000 a month. And that whole entire
For now,
process,
and
Jeff,
that goes up.
oh, that's just it. And in fact, the first one that I bought a couple years ago is already improved because of the market. I mean, it's in addition to all that has already built $40,000-$50,000 of equity just in 24 months sitting on the sideline. And that's just one property.
Yeah.
It's amazing, Jeff. And just to throw it back to you, in that scenario, when I buy property, I don't have to have a dollar of my money. I'm leveraging other people's money. And my private money lenders love me because that first loan, when he first did it, I paid him 12% interest now for 2 months, 60 days. That's how he made his money. I paid him 2 points on the loan. So he made his money. And we have a great business. In fact, there are people in my little city that want to lend money to me. They call me and go, hey, do you need a loan? What can I lend you money?
Yep. Hey, Josh, so let me ask you. So, by the way, we're going to calculate out a sample deal. We'll come up with an imaginary deal here in a second so everyone can really understand this. Because I'm sure a lot of you are like, I heard ARV and I heard CapEx and then I got a nosebleed and now I need to go to the bathroom.
Sorry.
Right? It's like, no, you're good. I love it. And so, but I want to introduce people to these terms. By the way, CapEx is capital improvements. ARV is after repair value, right? And so when you borrow from your private money guy, are you borrowing the 75% ARV plus the 5% improve the CapEx?
No. So he'll do it multiple ways. The ones that we most recently did is if I get it under 75% ARV, he really loves that. So for example, Jeff, I recently did one that I was at 70% ARV. So he lent me the money. I bought the house, did the work, and then he gave me drawdowns up until that point, and he wrote the original first position mortgage for the final amount so that the bank had one singular note, and then we rate and term refinance that note. He'll do it multiple different ways. And that's the beauty, by the way, Jeff, just to throw this out there. It's a mistake for people to think that they can only do deals with banks. And a lot of realtors in our area don't get into the game because they're so focused. Everything inside of them says, I must have a broker involved. No, you don't. There are private money lenders. Our network has them all over the country, and they have entire businesses and they want to lend money. And it's amazing what you can do when you use people, OPM, and not mega banks.
Yeah, OPM is other people's money, just so everyone knows. Not opium. That's something that killed a lot of people in China. Okay, so this is let's cover this. Let's do a sample deal for a second because I think this is really fun. And if you're not familiar with this space, why am I showing this to you? A couple fold. One, I want to show you something that Josh is doing where at the end of the year he can have spent $0 of his own dollars. And here's a funny thing that you guys may not know. We've had a bonus depreciation cycle. It's called advanced depreciation or bonus depreciation that's been going through it's a fully passed tax incentive program that has allowed, for a period of time, it actually allowed a 100% advanced depreciation, because normally you have to depreciate this on a schedule, right? What is it, 27 and a half years? And so you could compress that into 1 year, the full value of the house against your income, or roll it over multiple years. So if you made a lot of money and you spent a decent amount of it, not any of your own, on this house, you could then take a full-blown tax deduction and hypothetically get your tax bill to $0. How many people would like to increase their cash flow, take their taxes to $0, watch their net worth start going up into the millions, and I don't know, live a better life? Like this is what we're going to try to be really just pushing into the community, because I don't believe that you have to make as much earned income as everyone's trying to make in order to have the lifestyle that you think comes with that. In fact, income isn't what creates lifestyle. Net worth is. Net worth is where your lifestyle starts going disproportionate to your income. In fact, I don't really want active income. I want to squash out as much active income as I can, and I want net worth gains. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for income. Blah. Income. Blah, blah, blah. Right? Why? Because income's taxed. Debt isn't. Net worth isn't. These are great things. We're going to teach you how to work in this environment. Okay, let's do a sample deal. Here we go. So Josh
Hey,
I
Jeff,
mean,
do
you give
people
me
know what the BRRRR strategy is when we use that term? Is that
probably
common?
not. So go
It's
ahead. Let's break it down here at the top. So BRRRR, there we go. Equals what?
it
Buy.
means buy a property. I will renovate or rehab a property. I will rent the property, and then I will refinance the property, and then repeat the cycle again.
There you go. Buy, renovate, or rehab. I've seen it more often with it doesn't matter. Rent, refinance, and repeat. And Josh is doing exactly this. Just for anyone who's curious, this is not like it's not a secret strategy. There's like books on it and all sorts of craziness, guys. Does it work? I don't know. Ask Josh. He's got $1 million net worth on a school teacher salary. And
Yep.
I want you guys to know how much I respect that. Josh didn't make $1 million to create $1 million net worth. He took 0 of his own dollars and created $1 million net worth out of thin air. Is that more impressive? Yes. Can anyone do that? I don't know. Does anyone on here have $0 that they're willing to invest? So then you can do it. Fantastic. I see Jason smiling. It's a snarky question. All right. Shut up, Jeff. Here, let's do a sample deal. All right. So house value. What's the value on this hypothetical house that we're buying right now, Josh? Give me easy numbers so that we don't have to do something crazy.
Let's take down, I mean, let's keep it low numbers just to keep it round because the principle applies anywhere. Or do you want the house the purchase price or the after repair value?
So let's do actually, that's a great question. Let's do ARV of I'm going to give you easy numbers. I'm going to put the numbers down. Let's say we're going to take down a $400,000 house. I know in your market that'd be high. We got a lot of like West Coasters on here, so this would be a bargain basement kind of a deal. All right. So the ARV is 400. What does that mean? It means after the repairs that we're going to do, this house's market value will be 400,000. Is it worth that right now? No, it looks like poop. We're going to fix it. Fixer-upper. All right. So then, Josh, tell me what's next.
So the next thing that I need to do is figure out where I can get free money from it. And for the formulas in our area, our private money lenders will lend at 75% of that value. So if you'll multiply that by 0.75, that lets me know what I can purchase from. I can get the purchase price for.
I picked this number intentionally because I can do the math in my head. So, all right. So 300,000 is what I can now get a note for. And Josh also said that he's willing to invest up to 5%, which would be 20 grand here in repairs. So repairs, 20,000 on this purely hypothetical deal. So in other words, he's going to take a note at 300,000. What kind of an interest rate are we looking at on that, Josh?
When I first take down the note originally, because remember I got to do the rehab, so it's with that private money lender. My interest rate tends to right now, and it fluctuates, but let's give you the high one for this scenario.
Sure.
It tends to be around 12%.
Great. And that causes residential real estate agents to poop their pants, but get over it.
60 days.
Yeah, 60 days. All right. I'm going to put
2
that
payments.
next. You have a bunch of closing costs?
I'm going to pay, it can fluctuate depending on the deal when I've made with the lender. For just the basic one, we'll say 2 points.
Yep. Whoops. Okay, great. Not horrible so far. And for anyone who doesn't know how to do this, just grab a basic loan calculator. Hopefully you've got one on your phone. You're in real estate. And you could just say, what's he doing? A 30-year AM? Just normal AM schedule? Or is this, okay, it's not interest only.
No, I could do it that way, but it's typically 60 days. It doesn't make, we're talking about a difference of plus or minus a couple $100. Because I want free money, I tend to do what's in the best interest of the private money lender for those 6 days.
Yep,
and
smart.
People can disagree, but I'm getting unlimited loans, so I make him happy.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So repairs, 20,000. Joanne says, what does 20,000 get you in repairs? Seems low. Well, it just depends. It depends on what the property is. Josh, talk through this. Like, what are you looking for? What are the types of repairs? Like, it needs a new foundation. It needs 6 new roofs.
No,
It needs
I
a new
typically
wall.
don't do. I either look for one massive major repair that has prevented it from going conventional FHA or VA. That's a big thing, or a bunch of small repairs. The big thing over here in our area, because it rains a lot and there's a lot of issues, tends to be when the roof and the ductwork has completely just gone to heck in a handbasket, or it's got a termite hit. I've done 2 houses off termite hits because no one's lending on termite hits, and that can be up to $20,000 of damage. But Jeff, let's just pretend that one of the things that I'm going to do, let's just say this house, Jeff, was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. And what I'm going to do with my $20,000 is I'm going to expand it. It had a room on it that didn't have a closet. So I'm going to build a closet into this office and change it to a 4-bedroom house now. And I'm going to add 1 bathroom downstairs because it already had a hot water heater was downstairs, which meant water was already running there. So I'm going to spend my $20,000 creating a bathroom and building a closet. So Jeff, in this scenario, would you add in about $50,000 now to the new ARV before I go? Because we're not going to improve the house to what the old value was. Now I have added improvements that allow me to sell it at a higher value because I've added a bedroom and a bathroom.
Yep, love it. And remember, by the way, we're turning this into a rental property, not a resale property. So for everyone who's thinking, but what if it's ugly? Yeah, somebody rents it when it's ugly. I promise, by the way. And I'm not saying to create ugly properties. I'm not talking about being a slumlord. I'm not talking about being a bad person. However, somebody's going to own this property, and it's either going to be empty or deprecated or looking crappy, or someone else rents it or you do. Okay? So what we're really talking about is putting you in control of inventory that you're currently not in control of. That's all we're talking about today. Let's keep going. So Josh, now are we able to do that all for 20 grand, or what are we doing?
I could do it for 20 grand because I control my team and I can control my contractors. And at this point, I have a $2,000 shipping container outside of my house. So when I buy certain materials, I buy them in bulk and use them on 2 or 3 houses. So a lot of people are pricing products out at Home Depot, but I'm too busy buying on contractor supply. I'm not paying those prices.
Yep. Yeah. And by the way, for anybody who's never done this work, like, negotiate like your life depends on it. I have friends who couldn't get the deal done for this type of cost in their markets. And what they'll do is they'll actually partner up with their contractors and give their contractors a carried interest in the property. Your contractors might be willing to work for a piece of the pie, y'all. Think about that. There's other ways to compensate people. That's a barter kind of a situation instead of a direct compensation. Oh, I don't have cash. Okay, well, what else do you have? Stop being limited and be resourceful.
Hey, Jeff, I'm working on a flip right now, and my contractor asked me that if he did all the labor for free, would I be willing to buy the materials and then give him 30% of the profit at the end of this? So let that sink in. I bought a house with someone else's cash. Someone else is doing the labor for free. And then at the end of it, I'm going to keep, after I pay back the lender, I'm going to keep 70% of the deal. And I did nothing. I just found it.
Right.
That's it.
And how much money will you have in it? How much of your own cash will you have wrapped up in the deal?
When it's all done, I will have 0 cash. I will do nothing, but I will have tied up with my private money lender. But you have to remember, when I do the rate and term refinance, which is the next step Jeff's about to walk us through, that bank is going to repay that money back. And in that moment, every dime that I took down or used anywhere else is now, all that money has gone back out and I've come out free and clear.
Yep. So now Josh has increased the value on this hypothetical property to 450. He then goes to the bank and says, hey, would you lend me? Because now he's taken his 300 that he got from his private money lender, his 20,000 that he just spent. By the way, a refi with your private money note is as easy as calling your private money guy and saying, hey, can we rewrite the note for 20 grand more? And can you send over that cash right now? Right? You don't have to go through some long, laborious closing costs and all the other crap. They'll just rewrite the note and send you some additional capital, right? It's like an additional capital call on investors. And so then guess what? Now he's got a note for what? 320. That's the adjusted note at 12%. And he asked the bank, would you buy out my note? Am I correct, Josh?
That's it. For me, that you hear 2 different versions in the space. There's a cash out refi, which isn't bad. I'm not utilizing that product because where I'm at, you have to hold the house for 12 months before they'll do it. So we use what's called a rate and term refinance, and the banks will do a rate and term refinance at any time. So as long as they can provide you with a better rate and a better return. Now, going back to that 12%, I love that it was high. It guaranteed that the bank was going to give me a better rate. I love that the terms are better because in the old one, I'm making payments on a 360-month note, but there is a balloon that he writes in that I request that he writes in at the 24th month. Why? Because that guarantees that the bank's terms will be better. And if that freaks some of you out, remember, this is a person. If I get in a jam, I just call him up and go, hey, can we just change that from a 24-month balloon to just a standard 360 until the market improves? Yes.
Yep.
Cool. No problem.
Yep. Why? Because he's an investor, right?
That's it. He's an investor and he wants his money. So he's all about it.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to foreclose on the property. He just wants to keep getting paid. So here, and by the way, why do private money investors do this? Because they have money that they could be sitting in the S&P at 7%, but they can be investing it continually on cycle with someone like Josh at 12%.
Yeah, and for those of you,
he can be using OPM to do this deal.
And if there's anyone on the call and you're like, Josh, I've already achieved all of that stuff. The level above me, Jeff, that I'm not at, that Josh is going to be at in 5 years, I want to be a private money lender. In a lot of ways, once you own your own real estate portfolio, the next step is to lend money, because why in the world would you put it in the stock market at 8% when you can invest in people that are out, you got to think I'm paying 12% on notes and you have it back faster. It's a good business for all parties involved.
Okay, we're going to come back to that screen for a second. Here's what I'm going to ask you guys. If your head is hurting, that's good. That means you're learning and you're stretching yourself. Okay, I just want you guys to know, if you're like, I can't do this, it's too many, there was like 3 or 4 numbers and I'm just hurting, right? Okay, it was like 3 or 4 numbers and I'm sorry for that. However, what I will tell you is your ability to master capital and finance is your ability to gain wealth in the world. Accounting is the language of wealth. So if you're like, well, I want to be wealthy, but I don't want to learn accounting, then you're just going to need to keep buying lottery tickets and you'll be wealthy for the 1 to 2 years that money will last. Right? But that's kind of it. And why do I say that snarky? Because how many NFL athletes or whatever, pick another sport or person who gets kind of a huge windfall of cash, ends up going bankrupt? Because losing money is not hard to do. Wealth is about generating true value and then growing it past the economy. Past, not under. Because if it grows under, guess you'll lose it eventually just based on inflation, even if you don't do anything stupid. You just put it in a bank account and watch it get smaller every year, right? That's dumb too. Let's go back to this. We're going to wrap this thing up so that everyone can see how this deal really turns out. So now, Josh, in this hypothetical situation, did I screw up here? Oh, okay, never mind. I got rid of it. Don't worry about it. So in that hypothetical situation that I just lost completely, which completely kills my momentum, we've now turned a 400,000 ARV into a 450. We borrowed 300. We put another 20 into the deal. We've got 320 now at a 12% note with a balloon with the lender. By the way, I can remember the deal. That's not a problem. Then I go to the bank and I say, can I borrow 320,000? I've already got a mortgage. I just need a better one and I've made all my payments.
That's it, Jeff. And they're going to give me in cash 80% of the new value, which is 450.
Yep. And that's called an 80% LTV. What does LTV stand for? We're all in real estate. Loan to value. Right? And so they're just looking at the value of the house. Do they appraise the value, Josh?
Yeah, they're going to send out an appraiser. One thing too to mention over here, Jeff, that rate and term for me, I'm doing DSCR rate and terms. So they check and see what the rentals can do, but even if you've never done a rate and term, the only difference between a regular standard, your client rate and term, and a DSCR rate and term is they're looking off the price to rent ratio. And again, I'm way under that, so it's not a problem.
Yep. And just so everyone knows, by the way, and I'm not trying to push these guys, but Success Lending also does DSCRs. Wells Fargo is the biggest lender in the world in terms of business notes and also private notes in this capacity.
I have one with Success Lending and they did a great job.
Yep. Success is great. And remember, everyone's selling on this. Well, I shouldn't say everyone. Most of these guys are selling on the secondary market, which means they're not holding the note, right? Unlike that private money person, when he put capital out, he's just waiting for it to come back. The bank isn't. They're selling the note. They just made money on it the day you closed. It's crazy, right? This is how a lot of high finance works. When you start to understand that better, you start becoming a little less reluctant to ask for money, because the person you're asking for or from, asking for the money from, wow, that's a weird sentence. Anyway, that person is going to make money by giving it to you. You're thinking, but how could I ask them for money? They're thinking, why don't you ask me for money? Very different, because you're not thinking in terms of wealth, and they are, right? The banks are always thinking in terms of wealth. It's the only thought that they have. All right. So in this hypothetical scenario now, Josh has just gotten back the initial that he needed to pay off his guy, plus the 20 that they added on, which was his personal capital that he spent on the property to do the to do the CapEx, right? CAPEX. Just, it's short for capital improvements. X for improvements, super slangy, right? And so you're doing this type of improvement on the property. Now, at this point, he had 300 that he owed plus 20,000 he had spent. He just got a bank note for 320. So he paid off his note. How much of his own money does he have in the deal now? So Josh, give me real numbers. Your last deal that you just said you just closed, you're making 1,000 a month. Is that what you said?
Yep. It was
is that net?
Yeah, that's net. That's not gross. And that's after I save for expenditures. So if the last deal that I did, Jeff, there's one more step in it. Do you know what pad split is?
Yeah. But
So someone
I
asked me, I love pad split. So someone was asking earlier, what would I spend that $20,000 on? Well, let me tell you what I would spend it on. I would buy a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. I'll change the living room into a bedroom. I'll change the dining room into a bedroom. That totally cost me all in about $15,000. I usually do floors and paint. That's where I get to my 20. And then I rent by the room through padsplit.com. In my market, that averages 180. So if you're out there and you got your calculator, multiply 180 times 7, because that's how many rooms I would have now, and then multiply that by 4, and that will tell you how much that property cash flows gross every single month. And for you folks living in the Midwest, I am so stinking jealous of you, because your stuff by the week grosses way more than that. I've got some friends pad splitting out there for $200 to $250 a week per room. So it is epic in the Midwest. And Jeff, when I leave here, for all of you guys out there, I'm totally moving to like Wyoming, Nevada. I'm totally coming over there because,
yeah,
dude,
but
you guys are
you know what's
epic.
funny is pad splits is kind of the new version of like turning a single family home into like a micro hotel. It's like this is really all we're talking about, guys. And so there's so many different things that you can do in this space. But one of the key takeaways today is what we just walked through was exact deal metrics on a deal you could go do. And what you'll also notice is Josh didn't talk, he didn't have pictures of himself in overalls, painting a wall and repairing drywall. He hired that crap done. He didn't have to, but he didn't have $1 trillion. He could have done this entire deal, by the way, on a credit card. This is the one like weird caveat. I wouldn't do it, but you could. Right? You could do it on a credit card or a HELOC, or like there's a lot of ways that you could borrow that little bit of that little window of capital that you needed to do the CapEx. You could probably borrow that or from a family member. That's where I would probably go to the friends and family round first, right? So raise a little bit of equity and then raise a little bit of debt. That's okay. It's just capital. Capitalize the deal, refinance your way back out of it. And now what do? Repeat. That was the last R on the BRRRR strategy, right? So we need to wrap up here in a second. So whoops, there's our old deal. I'm going to go back over to our slides so we can hopefully get to the end here. All right. So you're going to have your liquidity, plan for retirement. Please take a note of this slide. I would recommend that if you're going to have some type of a wealth advisor, that you consider hiring an RIA. This is a person who is a true fiduciary, meaning they are required and monitored to act on the best interests of you, their client, not in the best interests of themselves or their fund. If a person's like, well, I get paid as a blended blah, 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 blah. Yep, cool. Find somebody who doesn't, because they're going to be looking for fees if they're not working this way. And I do believe in having some public holdings. I don't do much of that, by the way, but we're in a public company. I hold a lot of that, which is great. Having some diversified public holdings is great. If you're just going to buy a little bit of stock, buy like an index fund, like the S&P 500, that you just own a little bit of every company. That way, when one tanks, but other ones go up, you just always are going to have part of the top 5 that way, right? And by the way, index funds over like the last 100 years have beat all but like 1% of wealth advisors. So unless you're in the top 1% of hedge funds in the world, you're going to beat them if you just own an index fund. And you don't even need an advisor. Right? Just go get the S&P index. All right. Or whatever your wealth advisor tells you to get. I'm not giving you financial advice. All right. Continually educate yourself. Here's some categories to educate yourself in. Take some pictures if you want, because we're kind of right at the tail end. Single family houses, multis, REITs, public stocks, private capital, collectibles, alternative investments, accredited investor status. If you don't know what that is, that's something to fight for. If you're like, how do I really get ahead in the world? Become an accredited investor. Learn what that is. $300,000 a year in income for the last 2 years if you're married, $200,000 if you're single, right? Or a net worth of over $1 million. You have to document it. Then you can invest in different kind of stuff. Wealth building. By the way, this is something Josh and I talked about before we started today, and I'll wrap with this. I would guess every person on this call at some point in their life said, I want to be a millionaire, or I want to be a, I don't know, billionaire worth 10 million or $100 million, whatever that is. If you've ever said those words, but you haven't followed it up with like reading biographies of like 10 people who achieved the thing that you said that you wanted to achieve, how are you going to do that? You have no clue what anyone else has done to achieve this, but you just want it. That means you're waiting for an accident to happen in your favor. And that is like trying to go into a casino in Vegas and become wealthy, right? Unless you're the casino, it's unlikely to happen. Josh, what are your thoughts on this category in terms of educating yourself? And I mean, I know your thoughts because you're self-made in this capacity, but like, give us a little bit of like inspirational wisdom, and we'll wrap with your thoughts on it. What do people need to do if they really want to take the next step and continue to build themselves, whether it's education or just taking the next steps? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the process of wealth building begins in your mind. And I think you really have to get an education, whatever that is for you. You know, maybe that's podcasts, maybe that's books, maybe that's seminars. I know we talked about taxes. I paid $700 to attend Gary Johnston's Financial Freedoms Principles, and he went through the taxes. That $700 I spent saved me with my CPA just last year $10,000 because I went to one conference and went through the process. And there's so many books out there. But Jeff, you've taught me too. People who are millionaires wrote books that explain how they became millionaires or billionaires. Why would you not read it? And you're like, well, that's old information. Maybe so. Maybe the process has changed, but I'm less concerned with the process and more of developing my mind. I'm not who you see. I am someone now that is 20 years from now. I'm developing future me. I'm reading about syndications right now, Jeff, because I think that is huge. I'm not doing syndications right now. That's a little bit not where I'm at, but I know future Josh wants to know about it. And so I'm reading it up today. I'm going to be in big apartment rise complex deals down the road, and I'm reading about it today to develop that knowledge. So I would just tell you out there, get in the game and read. If you're interested in Burr, go to biggerpockets.com and just type in Burr. There's a book, they call it the Burr Bible. And I legit, Jeff, followed that plan. That's exactly what I did. I followed, I think it's David Green that wrote it. I don't know. I followed that book step by step. That's what I did.
Did you know that if you take the top 5 professions, by the way, that have become millionaires, doctor and lawyer aren't in the top 5. Did you know that school teacher is number 3?
I didn't. That's surprising.
Do you know why? Do you know why? You follow a plan.
Yeah.
I swear to you guys, like, here's the problem. If you don't have a plan, how are you going to follow the plan that you don't have? Just follow a plan. It can be somebody else's plan. Go get the book, follow the plan. But pretending like there is no plan to get to this imaginary destination, that's silly. Of course there is. Tell yourself what you want. I want a net worth of $10 million. Great. I want a net worth of $100 million, $1 billion. I want to start I don't care what it is. Whatever. Pick your goal and then find out who did that and how you can get there. And then start to look for connections in the world, right? Sorry, I said we were going to wrap with you. I'm an idiot. But anyway, I love this category so much. And if you guys don't know the connections that exist in the world, that Rockefeller and Carnegie were bitter rivals and that they fought to, like, learn wealth. Just learn the category and find out how money really moves around in the world. Like JP Morgan knew those same guys. Guess what? He was the primary investor in Thomas Edison. Tesla was Thomas Edison's apprentice. Do you guys know this stuff? Like it's all out there, right? Everyone is connected. Yeah, exactly. Josh just said Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Got a private message here, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad, great book to also get started in. So go and invest in yourself in this category. And then, by the way, we're going to do some future sessions inside the community that go even deeper into this category and how people can get really involved at a high level so that you can start making true progress every single year. Gain income, reduce expenses, invest everything that you possibly can. And we're going to show you how to do that, right? And also, we're going to show you how to invest without having any money to invest at all. That's a pretty great way to do it. All right, guys. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Really appreciate you. What a great day. Josh, you're incredible, man. Keep it up.
Love you guys. Thanks for all the inspiration. Appreciate you.